Hello, everyone. My name is Richard Fink IV from Throga, and today I have a special guest and dear friend of mine, Michelle Gruska. Hello, Michelle.
Hi.
It is great to have you here. We've been connected for several years, actually. We're both vocal coaches. We've been in the industry for many, many years. But today I want to talk about how to become a voiceover artist. So this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I've worked with voiceover artists before in terms of vocal health and general development, but the field of actually developing one's skill sets, repertoire, and then getting into the industry is something I know very little about. It's all secondhand, and this is right up your alley. This is perfect for you in your background. And I want to give everybody a really quick background to who Michelle is. She sent me a bio and a list that we don't have time for. You have done everything. It's amazing. So I'm gonna give like a really quick summary of this. So for commercial work, you've done things for like Snickers and Miller Beer and Toyota, 7-Up, Nabisco cookies and Starburst. You've done movies like Chainsaw Massacre, American Tail, Alvin and the Chipmunks, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Jackie Chan Adventures, Robots. You even won the Apex Award for being an Ewok for Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And then you've sang, so that's just some of the commercial work. And then you get into who you've sung with. We're talking Hall & Oates, Earth, Wind & Fire, Corey Wells, Lisa DeBello, Frankie Valli, Candy Stanton, the Pointer Sisters. You've recorded with Barbra Streisand, Natalie Cole, worked with David Foster. And then you've sung, your voice has been featured on as a singer. Let's see, the other guys, Sisters, Lois and Clark, Wonder Years, Hack, Beverly Hills, 90210, Star Wars as Sly Snoodles, episodes of Days of Our Lives. You've acted with Ray Romano, Stand Up to Cancer, national commercials. And on top of that, you've taught tons of artists and singers that we all know, like Kobe Kelly. What an incredible background. It's an honor to be chatting with you today and kind of discovering a little bit about you and maybe what you can offer our viewers in terms of finding who they are and moving in the career of becoming a voiceover. So I guess I'm going to kind of start with, what is a voiceover? What is that career about?
Well, before I answer that, I just want to say that it's a real honor working with you as well, because you really are an innovative genius, and you have invented something that's extraordinary and that I love so very much, and that factually works. And you have really developed an enormous avenue for so many singers, and I applaud you because you really are amazing, Richard. You really are.
I humbly receive your praise. Thank you. So voiceover actor, artist, what's the right term and what does that mean exactly?
Well, they're all applicable. They really are. They're all applicable, because when you go in for a voiceover in the booth, you are acting. There is no such thing as just standing there. You have developed a character, a plethora of characters. And in order to develop that character, you have to know what kind of hair they have, what kind of nose they have, what their physique is like, what they do with their mannerisms, what they do with their hands, if they're big, if they're small. You have to really develop this character into a real live person.
So this is not even just like cartoon work. You're talking about if you're coming in doing something that has no visual, you still want to imagine head to toe.
Absolutely. Has to be for everything. We're talking about animation, video games, promos, trailers, commercials, documentaries, audiobooks, movies, TV. There's so many things that you could do voiceovers for, but you really have to make sure it cannot be fake. You have to be able to develop that character to actually work for what those producers and those writers are looking for. Sometimes you go in there, you open your mouth, and you don't even get to do the character because right then and there, they're going, oh no, she's not going to be right for the character. So you have to go in there and be that character that you have invented.
So they're cueing that just their visual perception of you, your body language, everything.
Completely.
Even though we at home, on the radio or whatever, we're not going to see you in a voiceover scenario. I think very rarely you would see the actual voiceover artist.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't.
So because of that, they want to have the believability in your visual presence. So if it's believable to them, then it's more likely to be believable to us, basically.
Correct. I have had the privilege of working with some incredible, amazing voiceover actors that if you saw all of us in the booth, you wouldn't believe what we do. We're like, wow. I mean, we like, our arms flail, our faces manifest into Play-Doh. And I mean, we are really animated to get that character out. There's no such thing as standing there and doing a character. It doesn't happen. You have to really be very physical.
Working with singers, there's such a relationship there because in order for a singer to be believable in what even if they didn't write the song, right? Just like you didn't write the script, in order to make the words feel relevant and organic as if that's what they're experiencing, it is a head to toe experience. You can't just sit there and straight face it unless that's relevant to the lyric, of course.
You got it.
And subconsciously, the tonal inflections are like, we pick all that out as listeners. We know if it's real or not.
Very important, because if you're not seeing someone live and you're hearing their albums, you're hearing them on Spotify, YouTube, wherever. The truth is, the inflections and the story has to come out in our voice. So we have to have that expression to come out vocally.
Right.
So
obviously voice acting is tied in for that reason. What other skills? I don't know who's watching, right? It could be someone who already has some experience, have been thinking about this a long time, or maybe they just stumbled into this. What sort of skill sets are necessary?
You must, at all times, no matter where you are in your success, in your career, you always have to have coaching. Singing coaching, VO coaching. It's imperative.
Why is that?
Because let's say you play a guitar for 2 days straight and then you don't tune it and you want to play it for your next gig. What is it going to sound like? The more you use your instrument, the more you use your tools, the more you need to keep up.
Sure.
The more you need to tune it. It's no different for voiceover work than it is for singers. It is so imperative that you have training, consistent training, not constant training, but
big difference. Sure.
Yes, but consistent training. And if you're a beginner, I would multiply it a little bit. You know what I mean? For singing and voiceovers. But it's very, very important that you keep up.
And I find that as a teacher too, obviously. Yes. So not just as a singer, but as a teacher, I'm always, this is an interesting book. What does this lead me to? And just connecting the dots. Not just because the sciences are constantly being there, but I find that, I'm sure you see this too, Michelle, is that sometimes you reread the same book from 20 years ago and now the light bulb goes off like, oh, that's what they meant. But okay, it's like, why did I get that? It's been so much easier it's
experience.
A certain amount of experience and success in order to actually be able to apply everything that the coach may have been saying 1,000 times.
Yes.
I experienced that as a teacher as well as a teacher for my students. It goes on both sides. So I'm not surprised to hear that there as well.
Yeah, and I'd like everyone out there who is watching this to know that Richard is my coach.
So
I want everyone to know that's how
well, I appreciate that.
magnificent.
Right now, you're coaching me because we're going to get a little bit deeper into this. Well, you mentioned voiceover training. So how does that different from like a singing lesson?
Workshops from coaches that are heavily into the industry, that are lending their talents to putting out workshops. There are a plethora of them, taking weekend workshops, weeks. Very, very important. It really trains you from beginning to end because there is so much you have to know.
And for those of you, again, viewers that they may not have that accessible to them. There's a lot of small towns, even a lot of cities that really don't have a lot of options with that. Obviously, you're available to connect. Michelle teaches online, and so you can have like one-on-ones, of course, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But if you don't have a voiceover acting options, every town is usually within a short distance of at least acting classes and workshops. And I would imagine that would also be smart to explore that, because that way you're still connecting to your whole body, understanding characters and all of that.
Yes.
Well.
Yes. And in this climate, online teaching is rampant.
Yes,
so
with
there
the
are
social distancing right now, now's the opportunity to maybe pursue that if this is something that
yes,
you've never done before.
yes. Obviously, being in person is always, there's this warmth and there's this connection when you're only 2-3 feet away. But truth is that online teaching is incredible. It
Oh,
really
yeah.
is. There really isn't that much of a difference. If anything, sometimes there's less distractions because you're right there,
Exactly.
and it's really, really important to make sure that you're keeping up with your trade, or at least starting to learn it. And I have to say, this is a perfect time. This is a perfect time to become a beginner, and then become an intermediate, and then become advanced. And you don't want to push it. You just want to train, and you constantly practice and develop characters. You should have at least 10.
I was going to ask, yeah. So I got a bunch of questions for you. So maybe I can start getting into them a little bit too, just to kind of
Please
do a
do.
little bit. First of all, what is the difference between singing for like if you're singing for commercials, or you're singing for a film, something like that, versus the voiceover work? Are you running through the same channels in the industries? Is it the same networking and everything?
No,
Okay.
not necessarily, unless those producers are actually involved in both. Like when
Okay.
you make a demo, it's unequivocally separate. You make a separate voiceover demo, where you make a separate jingle/commercial demo, versus making a singing demo. They are
Okay.
all different. They are all different. You never want to put them
in
one place.
And when you're doing a demo, right, because this can be done anywhere. You can record demos at home. Obviously, if you go into a professional booth, that's going to be better, high quality sound. You really want to capture like high quality range of frequency of your voice or who you are.
Yes.
It's a difference, of course. We have another interview with Sam Palizzi from Throga Records that talks about how to set up a home studio. So be sure to check that out as well. So that could help you out.
Very important. That's a big part of VO work. So that's great.
So to be able to, and imagine same thing for auditions, right? They may do they give you direction? Like, here's what we're looking for. Then you have to invent. Do you invent your own character, or how much?
Well, it depends. If you're lucky enough to have a producer or whoever is going to contact you, the agent, that's another question I'm sure you'll get to.
It is.
They will either give you like bullets of the character. Yeah, it's done in the 70s, and it's a bulldog, and the bulldog smokes cigars. That's all they might give you. And then you have to invent that character. And the reason why I use that example is because that's exactly what I did for robots.
Okay.
And that's what they did.
So what does that sound? I have to ask. How did you interpret that?
Yeah, well, you know what? It's sort of funny when you do something like that. It's like that heavy cigar bulldog kind of sound.
Yeah. And I noticed you're even moving your jaw like I would expect a bulldog. Like that's that head to toe thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it took me hours and hours and hours and hours of looking at different bulldogs and videos and seeing how they moved their jaws, how they sounded, how they moved. So I just
is that, and then you get in front of a mirror and then you just start playing with that essentially?
Correct. It's very important for you to actually see what you're doing so you can invent that person. So that person has to be real. That animal has to be real.
Let's say you do that, right? So you have an audition, you develop a character, you submit it, they say whoever they is, they like it. What are the next steps? I mean, if you're not in LA or New York or Chicago or some, main hub, do you have to travel to? Are there remote options and possibilities? I mean, what's the flexibility in this career?
Absolutely. Years ago, there weren't, many years ago, but it is a new world, and we can.
You can go to a local studio or something, and
just they patch it into the movie and it works. And if they need to update or if they need new things, they let you know. It's scary at first because when you are new at something, you are so worried about not being accepted, not being good enough, needing to know more, and you always need to know more.
And I'm guessing, leading off of that, I've got my list that I didn't even get to everything that you've done, obviously. My suspicion is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that for every one of these amazing gigs that you've got, there's got to be at least 10 or 20 that you were rejected on.
50.
Okay. So that drives the point home. This is no different than any other competitive industry, and especially with artistry, right? It's not just about, did you do a bulldog? Is it what they want, what they imagine? Is that there's this intangible synergy between the director or producer's desire that they can't actually communicate or know how to communicate. And so just because you didn't get the gig doesn't mean because you weren't a kick-ass bulldog. It just wasn't the one they wanted.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Quick story. Barbra Streisand, when she was young, auditioned for something. She went to an agent. She, said, would you represent me? And after she did her thing and he heard her, he literally looked at her and said, you need to find another career.
Yeah.
Does that tell you?
I hear those things all the time.
Yeah.
And so I've worked with a lot of artists over the years that have had to deal with that. They've dealt with rejection, and it's part of the filtering system, right? That just kind of filters out the ones, not necessarily that are the most skilled. Some of the most skilled singers, I know you know this too, the world doesn't know about, because it's not just about skill. It is about personality and perseverance and those other qualities that lead to those opportunities. You have to go through waves of rejection and be okay with it, on some level to move through. So how did you do that? How did you achieve that?
When it first started happening, you can't help but go, oh my God, I'm not good enough. Or, oh, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? Which is always still a good thing. But it's not that. They are looking for someone who has a higher pitched voice. They are looking for someone who has a lower pitched voice. They are looking for someone who has a mean kind of outer character versus a very sweet outer character. It has nothing to do with your talent.
With your personal,
your personal who you are. It really isn't. And then as time went by, I realized the rejection wasn't about Michelle. It was just about what they specifically had in mind, and I just didn't fit it. It had nothing to do with my talent. It had nothing to do with who I was as a person. Nothing. literally nothing. So you just audition and audition and audition and audition. It's about numbers.
Are you still
And
doing, do you find yourself still there after decades of this incredible background and experience? Are you still going through those waves of rejection? Is that still the process?
a little less, but yes,
Yeah, it's still there, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Even in a different way now, yes, because I'm older. So there are now different rejections.
And that goes in vice versa, right? So now you might get a job because you have maybe an older character quality to your voice that you wouldn't have gotten when you were 20. So
Exactly.
yeah, so it works both ways.
There's pros and cons to all of this. And you can, if you personalize it, if you really don't get over that, it's going to get in the way of your belief in yourself,
Mhm.
which gets in the way of your auditions. And if your auditions aren't free of worry and authentic, they read into that, they see that, they feel that, and they move on.
It inhibits. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask, because I'm sure some viewers might be curious, I know I am, in terms of financial opportunity as a voiceover artist, if you don't mind sharing, what is the range of possibility, whether it's a supplemental income, can it be a full-time career? What's possible?
Both. If you're having a hard time finding gigs, obviously to support yourself, it'll become supplemental until, things start rolling. But it absolutely unequivocally can be your full-time career.
If someone's just starting, what might they ask? Like if they're doing maybe some voiceover work for a local radio station, versus like something that's more like Hollywood based, like
If they've asked you to do something, then it's so open to you. You can ask anything you want. And then if they say that's a little steep, you negotiate. But I would start off at 150 to 200 an hour. I would,
is
you
now
know,
so it's per hour, not per project.
per hour. If it's per project, it's whatever exceeds. I used to do this in singing. Either it was per hour or per song,
Sure.
or whichever one, exceeded the other.
Now,
And if they're asking you to do one character for one day, then I would do it per hour. If
sure.
they're asking you to do a character that might take 2, 3, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks, a month, that's a whole different ballgame.
Interesting. Okay.
And if you're
Now,
non-union, that's one price.
and I was
If
going to
you're
ask,
union, yeah, you don't have a choice.
and what would a typical union rate be if you're in that position?
Oh, anywhere from $240 an hour, because it is hourly,
Mhm.
to, I'd say about 450 or 470, something like that per hour.
So if
And
you
then,
land a role in a consistent episode series or something like that, that's quite the
oh,
paycheck.
you buy a house. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's really an incredible industry if you really work hard at it. It's not easy. People have this thing in their mind that, I could just go into the studio and, do a character. No, it's hard work,
It's a
but it's
process.
wonderful.
Well,
It's
just
a
like
process.
singing, right? Just because you can sing a song well, if you want to be recognized for that financially, there's a whole process of rejection, like we said, and getting
Yeah.
experience. So maybe you can recommend a few steps that someone could take. Let's say they have something that they're interested in. How would they get to that agent? How would they find those auditions or opportunities?
Well, the first thing I would do is take, depending on where you are at in your skill, I would take a beginner's workshop, and then I would take an advanced workshop, and then I would take, an intermediate workshop, and then I would take an advanced workshop. And then from there, you have to make a demo. You cannot get an agent without a demo.
So what is included in that demo? You
It
mentioned
should
earlier,
not
you said like 10 characters or something like that.
Oh, you could do 15 characters, but the whole demo shouldn't exceed 1.5 minutes. Sometimes 2 minutes, depending on how many characters you have.
Now, if you have that demo, is that something that, do you need like a .com? Is there like?
Oh yes, you put it
Okay.
online. There are different websites for voiceover demos.
So is that
There's
just a
at
Google
least
search
two.
away, or do you have
Oh
some
yeah.
specific
I mean, I can definitely give them to you at the end of this. Yes, they must have, because those days of sending in your demo, it doesn't
It's
exist
not a
anymore.
tangible thing anymore. No.
No, there's thousands and thousands and thousands upon thousands of demos online.
So speaking of, I have a special treat. I happen to have one Michelle's Gruska's demo, or at least one that you shared with me. I think you shared this with me about a decade, and I still have it on my computer. And we're just going to sit back and listen for a moment.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Remington, Fenwick's wife. I thought you might want this since the lights went out. It's a pie.
Well, there it is. My entire career fits into a cardboard box that once held individual servings of Spam.
Suit yourself, sweetie. We're on our way to new careers. And with my looks and talent, we're going straight to the top.
To be a true hero, kid, is a dying art. Like painting a masterpiece, it's a work of art. Is it true? Are you really my sister? Oh, I'll take that as a yes. I can't believe I actually have family. Family.
People of Earth, gather your loved ones and listen carefully. Earth has suffered massive damage, the result of an asteroid. The time for rebuilding has begun. Have a nice day.
4 burgers, no cheese, extra pickles, ice cream, half chocolate, half vanilla, but no swirl. Small order fries, oh, hold us all. Got a coupon.
Hey, officer, we're lost. Can you help us find this building? It's got to be around here somewhere. It's part of a city mall or something. Now, if I were a building, where would I go?
Not funny, really, but kind of ironic. I was just thinking that without him, we'd all still be guppies in a glass jar right now.
Whatever, darling. Why don't we just hightail it back to the penthouse? I need my beauty nap. Not that I could get much better.
Gee, I better not. The chief might take away my promotion.
That's right, that's it! I've had it! You 3 are without a doubt the champion nincompoops of all time!
I thought we all were the children of God.
So I've got a few things I want to ask you about this. One, I noticed earlier you mentioned to separate singing from voiceover work, but you included singing there at the end. I thought that was actually pretty strategic, right? Is that just kind of and I also do this?
Yes, because the one that I gave you was for a specific producer, and he actually asked, by any chance do you sing? So
is that what you do with reels? So based on what what the audition is asking for, what the guidelines are, do you go back and then repiece what you
sure can. Smart thing to do. Most don't, but it just so happens that this producer did, and so I manipulated it and it worked.
That's awesome. So you've got all these characters that sound incredibly abusive to the voice. How are you able to speak after years of all this abuse?
I've been singing like that my whole life, because even though it sounds abusive, it was still correct placement. And
imbalance is what it comes down to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wasn't coming from a place of like, and really hurting my vocal cords. Mine was calculated. And I was able to develop that at a young age, and it worked. I never lost my voice. I shouldn't say that. When I was with Frankie Valli, for a few years, backing him up. The air was so horrifically dry in Vegas. There was one time where all the singers got a little hoarse,
Sure.
but we all ended up with, B shots and went on, and that was it. I never had a problem.
And obviously, so environmental factors are always going to play, but technique-wise, it's a game of efficiency, right? It's knowing how far to take something to get the sound you want without costing, an excess amount. And that balance comes from just sheer experience, play, guidance, just a combination of those things.
That is correct. That is correct. That is right on, Richard. Yeah. Of course, you're going to know that.
But it's something you demonstrate so well, which is cool to see. The other thing I noticed was, now that particular reel was also all in English. I would imagine voiceover artists have an advantage if they are, if they speak multiple languages, if they can do accents. Do you have a background in that as well?
Yes, I do Spanish. I did Spanish singing for the Latin industry. I did that for years.
What about accents?
Very important. The one thing that they insist is if an accent sounds fake, it's an instant tell. It's an instant tell. You have to train. It's interesting because, to be really honest with you, when I was doing jingles, I did Japanese, German. There were a few others that I've done. I'm not recalling right now. Mm-hmm. I was able to, write it out phonetically, and I listened to people speaking those languages for days and then picked it up. I wouldn't suggest that in this climate. It's too competitive. So you really, really have to do your training.
That's the advantage of having and being a hard worker at that time and place. Sure.
Yes. But like right now, accents are really important. You want to open up it's very important to have versatility in voiceover work. Versatility is the number one thing, because if you sound the same in every character, then they limit you. They put you in a...
might be good for that one role, but
and that's it.
Then they can't use you for other things. So
Correct. So, training.
And get rejected.
Listen, this industry has a lot of pros and cons, but majority of everyone in this industry, the pros way outweigh the cons.
I would imagine, like anything else, if it's something you have a passion for, something you genuinely love to do, go for it.
And it's funny, because that's what you have to remember. You really hit the nail on the head. Because when a producer or a director is hearing you audition, and they can hear if it's authentic or not. And what's going to help you be authentic is you enjoying yourself instead of freaking out about being rejected or being terrible. Just go for it. Do you have any idea how many times I've gone in and I've done the audition, and within seconds of closing the door behind me, I go, oh my God, I have no shot at that. That was just the worst I've ever done. And then I've done other auditions where I go, wow, all right, Michelle, you feel good about that one. The one that I felt great about, they didn't give me, that was it. They never called me back. The one that I walked out and saying, oh my God, what did you do? I got the gig. So the thing is you don't know what they're looking for. And the truth is that authenticity, being real, having fun, just do what you do. And most likely you're going to get it. And if you don't, next.
Yeah, I love it. Michelle, thank you so much for your time and advice and tips and guidance today. So how can, if someone wants to get started, You gave them several recommendations as far as workshops and things like that and putting a reel together. But if they have direct questions for you, or maybe want to work with you, set up something on Skype or Zoom or whatever, that's something you are open to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can get in touch with me directly.
I'll set up a link or something. Yes,
Great.
I can get a hold of
Great.
it.
With my phone number, my email, anybody can get in touch with me. No problem.
You mentioned earlier that you've been studying Throga, and this is something that you're a part of as well. And I just want to throw that out there too, to any students that I maybe have worked with or are part of the online courses. Michelle is versed in the 7 dimensions of singing, so she can speak your language, so to speak. So if you're curious about this and want to learn more about voiceover artistry, she can connect what you're already familiar with to this. So there's going to be a really cool segue for you as well.
Yes.
So
Wonderful.
awesome. Michelle, thank you again for your time, and I will talk to you again soon.
Take
All right,
care.
bye.